welcome to Framework. This is John, and with me, as always, is the other host of Framework, Al. How are you doing, Al?
I am great. Although I guess I could be doing better because I've recently learned what is best in life.
Ah.
And it turns out I'm just doing what's pretty good in life.
Mm-hmm. And what is best in life?
Well, it's not the wind in your hair on the steps.
Yeah. Which is
That
not bad, but...
no, but that Sumerian poser, that he's like the coffee house poet of the Sumerian barbarians claims. But I believe it is, you may have to correct me on some of the grammar here, but I believe it is to crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of dead women.
Yes, absolutely. That is right.
Yeah, we're talking about Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, Conan the Barbarian. The predominantly, I think, the John Milius, Arnold Schwarzenegger film, the original Conan film. The other stuff will probably make some appearance, but really, we're talking about the movie here.
So we're doing this because I thought that I had seen more Conan than I had growing up, but I only recently have seen Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer, like start to finish, as complete films for the first time in my life. I realized going back to it, I thought one that I must have seen like TV edited versions of The Barbarian because it's a lot more R-rated than even like I remembered parts of the movie.
No, it's extremely R-rated, as a matter of fact. Yeah. The most R-rated.
Like kind of needlessly in points.
Well,
I like it, but it just comes from a different time of studio filmmaking where there just was not the push to, hey, let's make this PG-13 so we can squeeze $2 extra out of it. Like,
right. That would be absolutely how it's made today. They did make the inferior Jason Momoa one some years back, and that was R-rated. But yeah, I think this came out in 2021. I mean, first off, it'd be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as Conan is part of that. Some relics,
he is, yeah.
Like this is Chitauri artifact that they come across, and that'd be your Easter eggs and stuff like that. I don't know who's 1,000 years old in Marvel right now. Get Thanos in there, sure, whatever. It doesn't matter. This is a fruitless diversion. It would be PG-13 is the thing, and it would be lesser for that. I mean, of course, it's such a distinctive film, and I think that
I'm wondering what
is a big part of that.
Why the 2011 one wasn't, and I guess maybe it was because right then the hot fantasy property was Game of Thrones, which I mean obviously contributed to why Jason Momoa. I mean, although great casting anyway, but why him at that moment? So maybe they thought we want to ride that train a little harder. I think even a couple years later, it does get pushed down to PG-13.
I mean, I think they were going for like a Resident Evil kind of vibe with that movie. It was kind of when those movies were really, really making their hay. Them in Underworld, that sort of low budget R-rated studio film that really got pushed out in the last 10 years, but you could still get away with it back then. Which I think they probably spent like $25 million on that. They were not looking to turn a huge profit on the Conan remake. And that's borne out in the amount of effort put into it, sadly. But
they've kind of put their own ceiling on it. Like you're not going to make $1 billion on a cheapo version of Conan.
Mm-hmm.
To do fantasy, like you do need some production value, and I think for the time that the 1980 version came out, it's got some production value. Obviously,
oh yeah,
you can see seams from 2021, but there was effort going into it.
Oh, for sure. An enormous amount of effort and purpose. I mean, this is a $2.5 million film, which is, more than it sounds like, 1980 or whatever when they shot this.
Sure.
They were, they made a very
especially since they only paid Arnold like $200,000 or something.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. As little as they possibly could, yeah. I mean, this is before he had anything going on other than pumping iron. This is like, this was kind of his big announcement, and, they cast him because he looks like a Frank Frazetta picture, that's the entirety of it. He's just had the exact physical presence that they were going for. And somehow it was perfect. It's ideal. It's a star-making performance, I guess Terminator is the real star-making performance, but I mean, you can see it right here in this film. It's there. This is before he can act. We talked about this in our Arnold
Yeah,
episode, but man, the presence, man, he's there. He's got it right away.
yeah, and it's perfect because Conan himself and the Barbarian especially is like almost like a pre-verbal character. Like
Yeah.
he he has clearly been taught to speak at some point, but it's the probably my favorite thing about the movie is it's so weird with this fantasy stuff like this, and this is high fantasy. Uh, there's crazy magic stuff going on all over the place, and just where they decide to be like their version of realism. Like where does that which side does that come in from? And with Conan the Barbarian, it is way more, I guess, almost realistic about just or resigned to the fact that throughout this entire movie, like, well, this guy's origin is that he pushed a wheel, the same wheel in the desert around for 15 years
Yep.
as a child and has no schooling. So he just has no concept of how to move through the world.
Well, it's by his own rules, by his own, his own sense of want or desire or will. Like, it's he is the Nietzschean Superman in a
Yeah,
sense.
he's just a freewheeling id with
Yes.
all these muscles to back it up.
And he has a rage that drives him. He's got the deep burning hatred and desire for revenge because that is literally all he knows. He has
Sure, but
nobody else in
we
his
never
life.
get to the point where he reveals like his secret canniness or like his that he is more clever than his enemies give him credit for. Like he never comes up with a good plan at any point. Like I guess he sets a trap or two
He set
in
some
the
traps.
like
Yes. Uh-huh.
graveyard ambush sequence.
Yeah.
They are like Looney Tunes level traps. Like
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
they're not super elaborate. I mean, this sounds like I'm criticizing. I love this about the movie.
Oh, it's the best, yeah. Or that scene when his scheme to go get revenge on Tulsa Doom at his Mountain of Powers is he goes there and just like puts on a priest robe and just walks up towards Tulsa Doom until they grab him.
Yeah, which
Like,
it seems completely unnecessary. Like, I mean, yeah, you're not fooling anybody by being like the
like
one priest who's just like 4 feet taller than everybody else.
yeah.
But it's also like, why do you need to be a priest? Like, there's all these randos just walking up in the crowd. You could just be a recruit, right? Like, they're taking those.
Yeah.
And then he walks up and just hands somebody like the amulet that he stole from their
Yeah.
temple. That is the thing everybody's looking for.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, it's like Lilu Dallas Multipass, something with this, but it's not like a ticket. Other people
Nope.
aren't like carrying those around and showing them up. He's just flagging himself as, hey, I'm the guy you're looking for. It's incredible.
It
And
is.
it goes bad immediately.
Yeah.
There's no stage in
No.
that sequence where it's working.
Yeah, I mean, Conan in the books. I mean, I've read some of the Robert E. Howard stories. They're a lot of fun. He's definitely more of a low animal cunning kind of guy. He has smarts to some extent.
Mhm.
Like battlefield street smarts kind of stuff. Like he can pull off schemes. They didn't go
That's
for
what I
that here.
expected more
Yeah.
of. Yeah, they didn't.
I mean, The Destroyer, the second movie, which is not anywhere near as good. That's a lot more representative of what the books feel like, honestly. Like that, despite all of its weird Wilt Chamberlain, Grace Jones kind of touches that make it feel not really authentic. It's that is a narratively kind of what the short stories feel like. This sort of cradle to the grave revenge thing that the first one is doing it's something else. That's all Milius. Yeah.
I think you mentioned the word episodic previously, and
Yeah.
that's definitely the nice way of putting it. It does the Barbarian movie feels like there are 3 or 4 different versions of this script,
There are.
and Conan himself is just sort of like stumbling drunkenly from one to another, from scene to scene.
Sometimes, yeah.
There is technically, you're right, this revenge thing where it starts and ends the movie, but in the middle, there's just a lot of sort of pinballing from one like semi-failed scheme to another. And he's picking up some, like, I guess some pals along the way. But
Well, it's him
yeah,
learning the world. It's him learning to exist within Hyboria, and all through it, there is the snake cult in Tulsa Doom is sort of his magnet. He's always going towards that. even when he's having sex with a witch, even he's getting
Is he
drunk
like?
and punching camels. It's like he's always headed narratively towards the confrontation, and so it's a structure.
Not in
It's a
this, not in the straightest line, I would
no,
say.
it's a meander. He's
Yeah.
learning and growing and acquiring friends and learning the how to be a better barbarian along the way.
I like I like the idea that there is like a master class for barbarians that you could take.
Well, I mean, I think it's probably got to be mostly experience driven, right? I mean,
Yeah,
uh, the
yeah, it's an intensive.
climb climb the snake tower and fight the giant snake and steal the gem. That seems like that's a final course. After that, I think you got there.
I love that giant snake fight.
So good, yeah.
It looks it's so good. Well, it's very good partly because like it's getting started. It's like okay, here comes a big monster fight, and it's like 1.5 seconds into the fight, and Conan just already has his sword directly through its head, like sticking out the other side of it.
Yeah, it's still thrashing around and shooting
Yeah,
blood
no, yeah,
everywhere. It's
it goes on for a while after that.
yep.
But I was like, well, yeah, I guess that is the fastest way. Like, but good on you, Conan. Like, I guess if you do have some fighting pit smarts, if not street smarts,
Oh, for
he
sure.
flounders a bit in the streets. But,
That incredible scene where he punches a camel, which apparently he really did,
yeah.
and they got in trouble over it. Uh,
Wait, really?
oh yeah,
Wow, I did
That's
not realize that. I
that is
mean,
the
I'm not.
rumor.
I guess I'm
Yes.
not shocked by that.
Yeah.
It's clear at some point like there were
Oh,
some
oh yeah.
poor stunt men that did not make it out of this one.
It's a Dino De Laurentiis, man. They cut a lot of corners. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm guessing animal
Uh,
safety has a lot of those corners.
yep. Yeah. If you read the Wikipedia, you'll get the animal problems that they had. They didn't kill
Yeah,
anything apparently, so it's not Milo and
now that they're
Otis.
copping to.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
but one thing I think I did read a piece of trivia was that when Conan is crucified and uh, kills the buzzard with his
Yeah.
teeth,
Amazing.
they used real buzzards, and the buzzards had lice, so, which is incredible.
I mean, you can feel that rawness in this film, though. That's a
Yeah,
big part of the charm, I think, is that everything feels authentic. Like I believe those crucifixion buzzards in Hyboria would have lice as well. Like
indeed.
it's all of a piece, and it's all like for a film that's not overly concerned with world building, it has some excellent world building in it. Like a lot of this stuff just kind of presents itself and allows you to fill in the blanks. Like as far as
Yeah,
design goes, God, I love the designs of this film. I mean, I remember we talked about Lord of the Rings design. It's kind of near that level for me. I mean, obviously it's not the
it's a
same kind of
generation
thing.
removed,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's not.
But
I mean, and I don't think like in that time frame you had like Excalibur around too, which I'd say
but
it's a slight step above this. But
I disagree. I think this one has has some of my favorite design elements that tell a story within itself. Stuff like the armored dogs. Where they've gotten
yeah,
like Mongolian style armor on their dogs. Things like that, or the snake helmets, the helmets that the snake cult wears. They got
I do like that.
yes, those guys, the Rexor and Thorgrim, the sort of the lieutenants of Tulsa Doom. Those guys,
Fennel
like
Thorson
yes,
and the other guy. Yeah.
one of the Oakland Raiders, apparently. Those
Yeah.
guys, those guys have like almost no narrative purpose, almost no lines, but they're so great. They're so essential to this.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we need like sub bosses for Conan
hmm
to clash with at different points.
But yeah, like just that scene at the snake temple where they go in and that guy's having like a sex worship thing going on. Like he's doing some sort of religious ceremony with a bunch of naked ladies, and this is the dude with the big old Raleigh fingers mustache from the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah,
And
but it's also it's a sex ritual that's also like a crawfish boil, but with a human like cannibalistic crawfish boil, with just like human body parts in
oh
this soup.
well that's the big one. That's later. That's the Tulsa Doom when he turns into a snake. That sequence. Oh god.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's one of the best
This,
sequences. The
sorry,
music.
the second sneaking into a temple
and where there's
snake
a
temple
sex
sequence.
ritual going on. Yes,
Yes,
that's
that's the great
yeah.
thing about this is just how much of this movie is built around sequences requiring young Arnold Schwarzenegger to be like using sneaking around, like being stealthy, and that is just an image that will never not be amusing. Like Arnold trying to tiptoe
hmm
is is just a wonderful sight. It's balm for the soul.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that this is so funny, and I think mostly it's intentionally funny. And I mean, I think as we talked about when we talked about Arnold, he kind of just brings a little bit of comedy with him, no matter what.
Yeah,
That's why he didn't do a lot of serious films. This is kind
I,
of a hilarious film,
I
even
think
as
it's
it takes
intentionally
itself
funny, but
seriously.
not winkingly funny, which is an
Yeah,
important
it's hard
distinction.
too, and
And when you get to Destroyer, they're nudging the ribs a little more there, and it
yeah,
doesn't. It's not as funny. You know, it's a little
yes,
sweatier.
very much lacks the authenticity of this. Lacks the immediacy. I mean, I think ultimately, when you get right down to it, what really appeals to me about this film, why this is one of my favorite films that I've watched so many times, is that it really does feel like you've been transported to this world and this mindset. Like in a way, not a lot of movies can do. There's nothing generic about this film. Uh, and that's strange in a way because there are so many terrible Mystery Science Theater junkers that
Mm-hmm.
are superficially similar to this. So many ripoffs, so many things where they go into like a series of caves and have sword fights with goons or monster goons or whatever, and they're terrible. They're not, they just don't work at all. That's most of these movies, most sword and sorcery films. I don't think there's another one that even comes
Yeah.
close to this, but this one somehow
Well, I
is
mean, not till you
transported.
get to like Lord of the Rings. I mean,
Well,
like
yeah, but that's epic fantasy. It's kind of a whole different kettle of fish. And yeah, obviously that's doing it better than anyone else ever did. But this has the specific sword and sorcery thing. That sort of low episodic barbarian sex driven fantasy. It's sort of the ghetto fantasy. You know,
well,
uh,
yeah, especially when you get to Destroyer. I mean, that feels like it's a D&D module
yeah, exactly that
that
that kind of thing. Like
that a couple of the players have played through before, even, and they're kind of like fucking around a bit on the margins.
mhm.
But yeah, no, I think actually that is something that I appreciate about both movies is that, and I haven't seen the Momoa version, but I'm guessing that is recent enough that it probably fell into a little bit of this trap of like making like, is Conan the centerpiece of any like prophecy there? Uh,
I don't remember.
I suppose
It
like
sounds right though.
in Barbarian, he does get promised that he will get a kingdom of his own someday, right? Like,
Not
but
really.
it's
I mean, I guess the witch says it. Yeah, right.
yeah,
Right. But that's sort of, that's just sort of weird mysticism that could mean nothing, and we only know
yeah,
it isn't because the narration comes from the days when he already has become king by his own hand. God,
yeah.
the
We
narration
get
in
that
this. Yeah.
we get that
Mhm.
narration that tells that, but that's coming from a place of, it's not a prophecy. It is
It's
saying,
happened. Yeah.
this is history. I'm telling you history here.
hmm
Uh, probably embellishing it because he is Conan's chronicler and all.
yeah.
But but even if
Myth.
Conan does get the crazy cat witch that he has sex with and throws into a fire,
Yeah.
uh, describing the scenes in this is just fun. Um,
Yeah.
like, no, that's really a thing that happened. They were having he was getting a prophecy. She gave him like half of it, and then said, "But now you got to have sex with me." And he said, "Okay," and then it was going really well. Then she turned into a cat, tried to kill him. He tossed her into a fire while she was still naked, and then he had breakfast and went on his way. Like,
Yeah.
that's really how the whole scene goes.
It's great, yeah. It's episodic again, like that's a thing that is somewhat removed. She does tell him where the snake cult is, but it's
Yeah, but also it becomes apparent that it's like, yeah, it's the centerpiece of any town you might run into here. It's like he could have just walked up to the gates. Like, he wouldn't have missed them.
yeah.
She had the key piece of intel that she provided.
It's a structure. It's just a point A to point B thing. And why not have it be a cat witch he has sex with in the meantime, That's fun. That's, an exciting adventure for Conan. There's several during the course of the
Yeah, no, I don't mind it. I
Oh,
think
I
it's
know.
I just think it's funny how it does it. Like, it's almost like he's a little too dumb to follow the chosen one structure anyway. Which I think this is what I was trying to compliment the thing on for not making him a chosen one. That like he is prophesied to be the only one who can bring down Thulsa Doom or whatever and bring peace to the land. Like
No, he's
no,
just a
he
guy.
got kind of half promised that he would maybe someday be a king, but this movie is not even the story of
Right.
that.
Right.
Nor is the sequel. So
Yeah.
it's not it's I guess it's lower fantasy in that regard. That it's a little lower to the ground. I don't know, like that Conan is not special. I mean, he's special in that he's the strongest guy in any room he walks into, but literally just he has the biggest muscles. Like
Yeah.
it's he's not the smartest guy. He doesn't have a great destiny. He's not the you know holy warrior that is going to save the world. He's just going to maybe make himself and his friends rich while he kills a bunch of people.
Yes. Well, I mean, yes, that is actually proper Conan. That's the Robert E. Howard character to a
Mhm.
T. I think Milius adds in the Nietzsche stuff. The rise to power, the strength of will. All that sort of crazy right wing stuff that he's all into. I think it really helps this movie. I think it's kind of awesome. I mean, it kind of elevates it in a way. He
I mean,
recognizes Hyboria as a world where might makes right is actually correct and valid.
there
This
is also like a thing. It seems like the step number one, if you're going to take some like PG nerdy fantasy shit and try and make it like R rated and hardcore, is like slap a Nietzsche quote on the front of it. Like the one that came whenever you turn on Diablo on your
yeah,
PC back
it's
in the day, it would just flash a Nietzsche quote at you before it took you to the loading screen.
but that sort of self-importance is part of the fun of this, I think. Like again, this
Yeah,
is
it is. It is
it's yeah.
absolutely.
Like that's the stuff that the sequel is just well, we're just making a formula. This is a Barbarian movie, no big deal. This one thinks it's making a very important film and believes in that so much. It has the
Yeah.
will to manifest it in a sense, just as Conan himself would. That's the cool stuff for me. The commentary track for this movie, by the way, is one of the
I've
greatest.
heard clips.
It's one of the best of all time because it's everything you want, which is
Mm.
Schwarzenegger making an ass of himself in hilarious fashion.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
hilariously
yeah,
enthusiastic
yeah.
fashion.
And then Milius kind of explaining the just sort of pop store psychology of Conan, pop store. What you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sort of basic
Dime
dime store.
the mom and pop dime store.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, all the meaningful looks that Tulsa Doom makes. He's describing each of them and telling you what that means to him, and stuff like that. So it's actually very much, sort of explaining what was going on, the thought behind every little thing in the film, and also, a bunch of jokes about homosexuals by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
So
just talking about
yeah,
like, oh, you remember how great the tits on that sound lady were?
yeah.
Like, it's not very
Delightful commentary track for sure. Right up there with
unrefined Schwarzenegger.
yeah, but there is an intelligence to this. I mean, it's not a deep film or anything, but there's a lot of thought that went into it. Like the whole riddle of the steel thing.
It's pretty close to the Nietzsche quote.
It gives James Earl Jones something to monologue about, and that's worthwhile. I mean, if I'm being honest,
That
yeah,
there you go. I think you hit it on the head.
yeah.
I wish there was a little more James Earl Jones in the movie. That in the middle of the
Mhm.
movie, we could have gotten some more of him. And
I
his
think
just
they can only get so much.
fantastic haircut.
Yep. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a gem. The dialogue in this is all great, by the way. I think for being this is a movie with like probably a 30-minute sequence with no dialogue at all, right at the beginning.
Yep.
And yet this has some of the most quotable dialogue from any film. There's so many good lines in this, so many masterpiece phrases. Just infidel defilers, they will drown in lakes of blood, shit like that. Of course, the crush your enemies line. Just the titles, everything is given. The wheel of pain, the tree of woe, the mountain of power. All these things, the riddle of the steel. There is a grandeur to it all, and yeah, I love that stuff with where they're talking about their gods. Subotai and Conan are sitting on the step, getting to know one another, discussing the gods they worship.
And it's
Crom.
just my dad can beat up your dad.
Yes.
It's
Uh-huh.
the level of their theology that
Yeah.
Conan is capable of.
Yes, and also their gods are assholes. Like
Yeah,
the entirety of Crom's whole deal. And I mean Crom could reasonably be real in this universe. It could be
yeah,
true. It's just like, yeah, if you don't know the riddle of steel when you die, he throws you off the mountain. That's Crom. Yeah, strong on his mountain. And that's all that's his entire guiding principle in life. Got to know the riddle of the steel to impress Crom. And
yeah. And Krum might be a little bit less of an asshole than the snake god, but it's pretty close.
yeah. And it's all misinterpreted stuff too. He finds that skeleton with the Atalantean sword underneath the ground, and he thinks, "Oh, lives in the earth. This must be Crom," and that becomes true for him. I love that stuff.
Yeah, but then he gets the great, "fuck you, Jobu. I hit the curveball myself"
oh,
speech.
oh,
That's the great dialogue.
yep,
There's so little dialogue for Arnold in this.
nails it when it comes to him, though. Yeah,
Yeah, but
uh,
they tell a lot of story around Conan with just like with props, I suppose. Like
mm-hmm.
there is sort of like the jewel that he chooses between revenge or his new lady love
Amazing scene.
without and they do it by having him return this jewel. It's all done by a prop instead of through a monologue, and that works. This everything with Conan's father's sword like tracks
Mm-hmm.
uh
The weapon
like an
fetishism.
arc for
Oh yeah,
an arc for Conan without the need for Arnold to speak much about it. But
that's what I love.
His
That
arms can
scene
do the talking.
with the Valeria asking him to give up his quest for vengeance. That monologue that she has there, it's all done in one shot, right on him in the tent, and she has that incredible monologue. I really liked it where she's talking about how many times I've walked by tents that were warm inside, people holding one another, and I've known it is not for me, and now I have more than I've ever had. Please give up this quest of revenge. And he's like, you make a good point. And he just holds up the snake medallion. But snake medallion. Yeah. It's great. Great
Ooh,
filmmaking.
but fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Love his knife, but really fuck this guy.
That's Milius using Schwarzenegger's limitations. I mean, it's like working around the shark in Jaws, like
Yeah, but it's smart in both cases. Like it ends up working super effectively for the character, or I mean, to the extent you consider the shark a character.
Yeah. I mean, it's in a sense, they're not dissimilar in a lot of ways. You could tell Jaws from the point of view of from Tulsa Doom and his snake guys, just trying to hunt down this barbarian. Basically,
you could do
almost
it that
his
way. Yeah. They just can't take him out.
The one of them does look rather like Quint, and nothing. Okay.
Well, let's talk about the end of this movie, because
sure.
I thought, from seeing it on TV as a kid, I thought that the big like fight at the graveyard of the gods or whatever it's called, the rock formations, I thought that was the end of the movie. And
I mean,
I was surprised when like Tulsa Doom runs away from that. And like,
cool.
There's more to this. And then Conan sneaks. We do a third sneaking into the temple sequence. I guess is this the fourth? Because I'm recounting the failed one where he walked up and flashed his stolen amulet immediately. I don't know if that counts.
He figured out he learned from his lesson. That's that cunning, and he went around the back this time.
That's true. Yeah. And he avoided like interacting with anybody. Just like I can't speak to anybody. That can't be part of the plan. Yeah. So he just sort of sneaks up behind Tulsa Doom while he's giving a big speech to all his cult out there, and he cuts his head off, and that's the end. I like that Tulsa Doom kind of realizes the jig is up, and his like Hail Mary play is like, maybe can I give you like the I am your father speech? Like, give this. Let's try this out. Let's trot this one out. In fact, if you think about it, which right there, it's not going to work on Conan. He's not going to think about it. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Remember the quote at the very beginning? Like, if you think about that, then I was the one who hurt you, but I didn't kill you, so I made you as strong as you are. Aren't I your father?
Yeah.
And Conan's like, nah, man. Like, I'm not that guy. I'm not the destiny guy.
Yep.
I'm just the stabby guy. So, stab. Roll credits.
Yeah, it's it's such an assured film. It's so confident what it's doing. It's almost like a response to the films that have been made since fantasy movies, that have been made after Lord of the Rings. I guess all the chosen one narrative stuff like that. I mean, when you think of it in these terms, it really does feel like almost a repudiation of that. And what it really is, I guess, is just sort of that Star Wars was a hit, so they they said, well, let's have some more pulp adventure movies. So this got green light, and it does feel like that, kind of like it's Star Wars made by psychopaths. Occasionally, it's,
That's
it's
great, actually. I love
yeah,
it.
it's
To that end, I was thinking. This occurred to me that they made like a pretty successful Conan video game, right?
they've made a few, yeah. There's a big like World of Warcraft type one. I think is the huge one, Conan Exiles. Yeah, I
Age
haven't.
of Exile. So I'm saying, okay, I think that. I think maybe I was thinking of Age of Hyboria, but
That's another one, probably. It's one of those IPs that they just keep doing stuff with.
well,
Uh,
I was thinking that yeah, it seems so obvious that or like the first thing you think of is that you could do a World of Warcraft type thing in Hyboria, and
mhm.
you know, an MMORPG. That's sorry, just one of those things I never say out loud, so I started doubting myself 2 ends in.
It's impossible to
But
say it. Yes.
but I think actually what Conan should be in a video game form is like Grand Theft Auto Hyboria, or like Red Dead Redemption should be the template for this, where you're
Oh,
sort of like doing heists and scams, but you can also kind of just run into any village and start stabbing people and punching at every camel you see. Um, because really, like from in both movies, he just kind of careens. He gets a mission from somebody, from some ruler, and he goes off and kind of does that and halfway fucks it up, and then he runs into another ruler who's like, "Oh, Conan, now you're gonna go find this jewel for me, or you're gonna find this amulet for me. You're gonna take care of here." But I think it felt like Rockstar Games should have done the Conan video game.
you're right. I hadn't actually thought of that, but it does really have this movie in particular. Kind of has the structure of a video game. It's a lot of quest givers, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the big signature
Cat Lady.
set pieces things. There, there's the side quests like Cat Lady. There's and then there's the major quests where you get a new party member as
Yep.
often as not.
They join you.
Yeah, it really is kind of set up that way. That's interesting. Yeah, well, obviously that would work. I mean, you want to do like a BioWare style game based on this. I'm in. It's probably going
Well,
to be
yeah, I
great.
mean, 'cause
Yeah.
it's enough of a fantasy thing that yeah, you could do a more traditional RPG thing where Conan gathers his party and goes on his adventures. But I think because Conan's like morality is so loose
Yeah.
that it fits the Rockstar like
Yeah.
like sandbox vibe, because and because it lacks the Destiny angle.
Right.
That yeah, in a Rockstar game, like you're going to accumulate some power and influence as you go,
It's the
just so
fun
they
of
can
it.
keep
Yeah.
feeding you more game mechanics to play around with. Uh, but you start off as a pretty low level guy, and you're not a figure of destiny. You're just uh, someone who's going to go around and be crazier than the next guy, and win a bunch of shootouts until you flame out and lose the last shootout.
Yeah. Or just lose interest in the game. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, that game might exist. I wonder how much that the Conan Exiles game kind of covers those bases. I mean, it's probably more annoying because it's an MMORPG, and those just tend to be grindier and more difficult to really just sandbox out on. But
yeah. I've
yeah,
never gotten into those.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
I played World of Warcraft for like 3 months and kind of had to shut it down. One of those things. It was just like, oh no, 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 this is not going to work. Not for
yeah.
me. No, this is it consumes you, and it's very easy to
So
see how that's happening.
we're going to return back to our like video game RPG series, long gestating series
Oh
soon.
yeah,
So
yeah, for sure.
let let's jump over to Conan the Destroyer a little bit, because I
Okay.
came into that one knowing its reputation as being just this, horrible bastardization of the purity of the first movie, and it's not that that's like inaccurate. Really, it is a toned down, watered down version of the first one.
hmm
But I was surprisingly I liked it more than I thought I would. I expected
I
it to be a disappointment. Outside of I think how horribly misjudged like all of the Tracy Walter uh, comedy relief stuff is. Other than that, I kind of liked it. I think Will Chamberlain and Grace Jones are great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. It's as I think we've it's better than a lot of other sword and sorcery films. It's better than Beastmaster. It's better than a lot of these. Better than Red Sonja,
Yeah.
the next Arnold one. It's it's a letdown for me. I mean, it's a real Ghostbusters 2. It's just not. It doesn't have the things that I really responded to from the first movie, and what it does have is fine, and it works. I mean,
Can we unpack your Ghostbusters 2 comparison for a second?
yeah, sure, of
Are
course.
you using that as shorthand for just like disappointing sequel?
I mean, I guess so, but I mean, you can say Ghostbusters 2 has some game to it. It has some things. It has some qualities that give you the taste of the original. But in the
In a
end,
way that just disappoints you.
Yeah, it's
like,
missing the magic completely. It is missing whatever it was in the first film that was so successful, and you can see the sort of attempts to reach that again that fall short.
so okay, if we're talking about just like disappointing sequels, I'd say Caddyshack 2 would be my
Oh,
go-to
well,
there.
that I mean, that's a night and day thing. There's none of the original in
Yeah,
Caddyshack too.
but Ghostbusters, well, and that's I guess Caddyshack 2 is also like the PG sequel to an R-rated movie.
Sure.
It's just its own phenomenon. And with Ghostbusters 2, what it conjures up for me is the specific thing of a sequel that like goes for a reset so hard to like the dynamic of the first movie in a way that like breaks the world of the story. Like it makes no sense for them to be back at the bottom and people like not believing in ghosts again.
Yeah, that's a really weird
Like
decision. I don't understand that at all. Still,
where it's almost like retconning something
uh-huh.
that I will say this for the story. It moves forward. I don't think it regresses anything from the original movie.
No, no,
Like
it's still
Conan,
recognizably. Well, it's mostly the character. Yeah,
yeah,
it's Schwarzenegger doing it. At this point, he's just going to do what he does, and that's going to feel consistent
yeah.
because it's just Schwarzenegger.
And he has 10 times more lines than he did in the first movie
Right.
because Conan and Arnold have come along as English speaking peoples.
Mm-hmm. The lines aren't as
Um,
good though.
no,
Yeah.
no, they're not. But I don't know. There's parts of it that I like. That
Mm-hmm.
I like that he just doesn't like magic. He's against that
That's from
until
the
it can
book.
do something for him, and then he's like, "Well, all right, I guess." Like, I know you're an evil witch, and but you said you'd do something for me, so I guess I'll go ahead and do it. This is great. He thinks it through like half of one step, and that's it. Um, I like the sort of the callback to the camel punching is pretty weak. It's very like
Yeah,
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
kind of Ghostbusters 2, you might say. Um,
Yeah, I mean they didn't have to like call it, like I think that there was a better way of doing that where he's kind of like does a double take and is like squinting like is that the same camel? And then the camel spits on him and he's just like I see. But rather they're like nudging each other and like hey remember this guys? And then they go through
uh-huh.
the whole thing and then he punches them and it's I don't know. That's sorry way down in the weeds of nitpicking. I just I think that would have been a really fun callback if it had been done with a touch of subtlety.
Yeah.
Uh, Subtlety is not a word we use very frequently
I-
around Conan.
no, I mean, The Destroyer is a far less subtle film than the original, which is quite a statement, really. The I mean, it's got some things. I like the Horned Beast. I like
Yes,
I mean,
good design.
the general plot is fun, and like I said, it's a lot more like a Robert E. Howard story than the first one. It is just an episode, a Conan adventure, that he just sort of gets plopped down in the middle of, and that's how most of
Mm-hmm.
the stories read. Like, oh, he was doing this thing, and then this thing happened, and he had to fight a beast, and he had to
Yeah,
grab a gem, and there was an evil sorcerer who was trying to play him against himself for his own ends, but it didn't work because Conan just was too strong, really, and
yeah.
that's that's fun. It's okay. I mean, I wouldn't mind having more of
Either too
these.
strong or too dumb to fall for an elaborate ruse.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, he
um,
is that character still. I do really wish that King Conan had happened. That would have been a lot of
yeah,
fun. Uh,
I agree.
it's it's almost a cliche now, sort of the Unforgiven of Conan movies. The
Mhm.
would have been Arnold post governorship coming back, playing an old Conan looks back at what he has wrought, and that sounds like a lot of fun. I wish that had happened.
If they could have got Milius back, it would have been fantastic.
Yeah,
Because he might have looked back and been introspective about what he has wrought, and then taken like all the wrong lessons from it, and decided to become like more of a brutal despot than he had been previously.
that sounds perfect. Actually, that sounds like exactly what you want. Yeah, I'm sure it had something to do with it, like he has a son or some damn thing like that.
Oh yeah.
But I would love to read that script. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I used to do a thing where I read scripts. I should find that one again. Um,
Yeah.
that would be fun.
Well, I really I like in Destroyer. I think Wilt Chamberlain works great, and I love the Bombada character. Um, I'm shocked to say that because it's such a stunt,
Hmm.
but I just like the dynamic of him and Conan and how like you kind of think in this PGized version of it, like, oh, he's going to be kind of won over
Yep.
to Conan's side and become one of the good guys and fight against the evil queen at the end. But no, he was given the task of betraying Conan, and he does it, and they fight without like any big teary speeches. It just, well, we were allies before, and now we're not, and I dug that. And
Yeah.
on top of this, the inherent hilarity of like in 1984, uh, casting Wilt Chamberlain as the designated protector of this young girl's virginity.
It's great. Yeah, it's very funny. It's him and Arnold. I need you to take
Yeah,
this pure
these two
virgin,
guys.
take her away from this castle, and keep her, pure. That is the most important thing to me.
And
Please,
just the two
Will
worst people in
Chamberlain
the
and Arnold.
world
Yeah,
in our world. And Conan's got to be pretty close to the worst person in this world to put in charge of that. But it's really, I mean, good for them though that Conan does not like go for it with her.
well, of course not. And I mean, it could go that
He's a bit
way.
more woke than I thought he would be. Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point. This film is a fetish. Both these movies, fetishization of masculinity, like taken to comical extremes. It is
certainly.
a pure, just like hyper masculinity on display. They are surprisingly not very toxic in their masculinity by modern standards. I mean,
Well,
that's one
they're
thing.
very accepting of powerful women, I suppose.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
um, I suppose that is part. The Valeria character in particular
Mm,
is kind of really good. That actress Sandal Bergman won a Golden
yeah,
Globe for this film.
really.
Yeah, and I mean it was like best new star is one of
But
those.
doesn't
But
I mean? And does she even get the name until the second movie? Like she
I
dies in the first movie. I don't think that they ever said her name out loud.
I believe after she dies they say her name. I think is how that works. Uh, I would say she has some of the best romantic chemistry with Arnold of his whole career. I
Yeah, I don't think that's a super high bar to
It's
clear, but
not. I think maybe
it's
Jamie
up
Lee
there.
Curtis is the only competition, really.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's about it. But mostly, I think, yeah, she has like
And Carl Weathers.
well, yes, that's a good one. But they actually have romantic tension between them. Like it works in this, and I think part of how Arnold is playing this role is just sort of a big dumb person helps in that regard too.
Yeah.
But they work together really well, which is not something you would usually say about Arnold and any of his female co-stars. But
One thing
yeah.
that I really like in Destroyer that like takes over from the first movie, and
Mhm.
it's not, a lot of times these sequels, like the camel punching thing, it's just recycling the same bit and like drawing your attention to it. But there's something a little a little more diffuse that it it repeats from the first movie that I love, which is that there's a part, I don't know, 45 minutes, 55 minutes into both movies where like the script is leading up to like a whole sequence or a subplot, except Conan just gets too drunk to participate in it, and so the movie skips over it because like in the first movie, the kings or the chieftain or whoever, after they have stolen the gem from the snake temple,
Hmm.
sends his bodyguards to go collect Conan and Valeria and bring them back to like give them their next quest,
Yes.
and they kind of barge into the where they've been having their drunken bender, and it's like there should be a whole like fight scene here, but Conan just falls face down in his soup instead, and he gets drugged and like hung over in front of the, the king, and half listens while he gives him his quest. And that's great. We skipped this whole fight scene because Conan got too drunk. And this one, there's like almost a romantic subplot with the little girl, except he's too drunk to even pick up that she's hitting on him or cares. And it's also sort of morphs into like, oh, he's going to teach her like some fighting moves, so maybe like she can use a fighting move in the fight to like, you know, in the final showdown to show her character growth and how she learned from Conan. Except he teaches her to like hold the sword over your head. All right, great. Now you're ready. And then he turns around and passes out.
I wish there were more movies getting made with idiot heroes.
Yeah.
Like dumb guy hero, who happens to be really good at fighting or whatever. I miss those. Like even, like The Rock should play some dumb guys occasionally. He doesn't. I don't know. I guess maybe Jumanji he does something like this. But it's a
The
trope
last Rock movie I watched was Rampage, where he plays a Navy SEAL rock star primatologist.
Yeah,
But
no.
just let him be a dumb guy. Let him be a dumb Navy. It's like a special forces goon.
Yeah, like honestly, a dynamic that I really miss in movies that is very fun when applied, and you almost never see it anymore, is like stupid brawny hero with a smart antagonist, like intelligent villain versus stupid hero. That's a lot of fun, and you rarely get it. I mean, surely one of the superhero movies recently made could do something like that. I guess the closest you would get is Shazam.
Thor is kind of that, I guess.
Thor is
like the dynamic between Thor and Loki is a bit of that, where he's
it's great. It's really I really like that. Yes.
Yeah. The Texans I'm thinking of are all like cartoons, though. I'm thinking like, yeah, it's sort of like the Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote dynamic,
Yeah,
except that the Roadrunner is fast instead of strong, but Wile E. Coyote has all like the elaborate schemes that are just stymied by this unthinking, physically gifted beast, or like Sideshow Bob, basically.
Well, Sideshow Bob is a great example of that too. It's always satisfying when you see that dynamic play out. And Sideshow Bob, I think the reason those always work, that's part of it. Like that those were a highlight for a decade of The Simpsons when he came.
Well, it's inherently comedic too, because the other one I was just thinking of was MacGruber.
Yeah, they kind of do that too.
But yeah, there's an inherent comedy there. That, like I said, that part of this is that Arnold brings some comedy with him wherever he goes. It's just kind of impossible not to.
Part of it's charisma.
It's great in this context.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of got. I mean, Tulsa Doom comes off as very intelligent. I think one of the brilliant pieces of casting in this is getting these. Well, him and Max von Sydow really elevate the film amongst these kind of guys who clearly aren't were cast for the way they move.
I feel like it's not that unusual, like you were saying earlier, with all the bad like fantasy knockoffs that don't work. It's not that unusual for them to like splurge to buy like one overqualified actor to be the villain.
Jeremy Irons in Dungeons and Dragons. Yes,
exactly.
Yeah, it's good,
but that doesn't make them work on its own. Like
nope.
There's a little more mojo going on here than just James Earl Jones making the Barbarian work, because he's not in it enough to make it work on his own.
Well, you got them. Yeah, that's why Max von Sydow's there too. I love him in this. That scene is great. They gave him just some hilarious ornate dialogue. That there comes a time when gold loses its luster and the throne room becomes a prison, and all that is left is a man's love for his daughter. That shit is great. That's why I love this film. All those little scenes. And I get Mako's got those too. The narration has a lot of those kind of gems. Like they give the really hyper literate stuff to the actors and let everyone else do the action scenes.
Yeah, that's again sort of like how the plot works with Conan. that the rulers and the wizards and the kings have like the actual plans, and then they leave all the action to Conan.
It's great. Well, I mean, there's a million scenes in this that I love. I could talk about it all day. The scene with the ghosts. What an effective special effect that is. The cartoon ghosts trying to drag his soul into the underworld.
Yeah, talk about world building. Just
That's,
painting a bunch of tattoos on him, like it goes so far to just like
yeah.
you don't have to explain a bunch of stuff here.
Hmm.
Just show us that, and we're kind of ready to go.
One of the only crucifixions in cinema that is not meant to invoke Christ. I think.
Yeah,
It's
I
more
like
like
that.
Prometheus or something. It's great.
Mhm.
I like love the well, we've talked about the cat witch, of course. Um, the that final sequence on the mounds, with all the weird booby traps and the arrows, that are snakes that have been straightened out and shot like arrows, or the cannibal orgy, or in any sequence in this. It's also powerful, but I gotta say, the one thing that we haven't really touched on here, and I think maybe the most important thing to making this film work, is the score. It is
Oh yeah,
one of the greatest scores in the history of cinema, in my opinion. At least in regards to how much it plus ups the film. Like, I think this is on level like Star Wars. Like, it's that effective of a score.
with a mediocre score, we would not be talking about this
Yeah,
movie. I think
yeah.
there's some, Conan the Barbarian is kind of well thought of by nerds. It's not a huge cultural touchstone,
Nah.
but I think there is some like minimum threshold that this movie is kind of very close to. That one thing not working quite as well could keep it under of like not being as fun to revisit and talk about. And I think this scoring is hugely important for
It's like
fantasy
40% of
stuff,
the movie,
especially.
maybe. It's
Yeah.
every
Well, for
major
fantasy
idea.
movies, especially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
It needs to
everything,
place you in a different world.
it does that hugely. Very successful at that. It underlines every sort of emotional beat, every thematic
Mhm.
idea in this movie. The score kind of allows you to have that. It kind of it tells you what it is. It is what the film aspires to be. Every time that the music kicks in, it you get how seriously it's taking itself, and you, for me personally, I go there with it because of the music. All these, all of it, really. I mean, the main theme, of course, is iconic to me, but all of it's great.
And
Subadai's
that
theme.
may be sort of like the missing secret piece that keeps a Beastmaster or a Cull from having the cult following.
I mean, I think there's more to it, but yes, I think if there was one thing that this really has over them, it's Milius Schwarzenegger, sure, but I think that score is just a masterpiece. I would go see a concert performance of this music without the movie playing. Just see an orchestra play this stuff, and I feel like I would be transported to it. You could all take out all the really great dialogue in this movie. You could take out a lot of it and just play the score, and it would still work really effectively as a
Yeah,
silent movie with
silent
that
film.
score.
Yeah.
And the proof of that is the 30 minutes where that is exactly what happens. That kind of opened the movie. Just that opening scene, with the opening is him talking to his dad on the mountain about the riddle of steel, but the raid on the Chimerian village,
Yeah.
is pretty much entirely just music and images, and it's riveting.
Yeah, there might be a little bit of the voiceover from Mako, but
Yeah, there's some.
it's not that necessary. It doesn't tell us anything that we can't like see visually. I don't think.
Hmm. I mean, I guess they just want to say these cool lines. I guess, but,
Yeah.
life, death, the same. All that stuff it's flavor. It's added spice to it. But the story is being told just through visuals and music. And yeah, I mean, I think this would be a great film to watch without dialogue. If that was ever a particularly fruitful thing to do. Um,
Yeah, if that were an
mhm,
option on Blu-rays, then this would be one of the top candidates
mhm.
for that type of experience.
Really great composer, Basil Polidoris. Never quite sure how to
Mhm.
pronounce that name. Did a lot of good things. Did all the big Verhoeven sci-fi movies. Uh,
Yeah, he did Starship Troopers, right?
yeah, another great
That's a
one.
great one.
RoboCop's a great one.
Oh yeah.
Total Recall, really great.
Let's end with this.
Yeah,
What do you think if you're going to redo Conan now?
yeah.
How do you do it? Are you bring? Is
Eh.
it too late to bring Momoa back? I'd say so.
I mean,
Um,
you know, I don't know. I mean, I can't think of anybody who I'd want other than Momoa to do it. Is the thing. I'm sure the guy exists, but he might be an unknown like Arnold was. You know.
But should it be a streaming series? Is I think that
Yes, it
rather
should.
than a film. That's because the movies are so episodic anyway. It seems
Hmm.
like that may be the way to go.
I think
Like 30 minutes, like The Mandalorian, I guess.
you could do great things with that. It would be the way to go. I do think an R rating would help. I guess you don't worry
Certainly.
about that on TV, but I do think it needs to be the adult kind of show, the adult fantasy show. Or
Yeah, when
not
I say
even
The
adult,
Mandalorian,
but like
I
the R
don't mean the
rating.
tone of The Mandalorian. I mean like the structure, like the length. The 30 to
Hmm.
40 minute episodes uh, on a streaming service, very episodic. Kind of throwback episode. Conflict of the week,
That
and you
is
just
how
kind
I
of
would
go.
approach it, because then you can
Yeah.
directly adapt the Robert E. Howard stories quite easily.
Yeah.
Instead of taking little bits and pieces and trying to form a whole narrative around them, which is kind of what the
Yeah.
movies did.
Which there are like hundreds of those stories, right?
Oh, maybe not hundreds, but a lot. There's plenty. You're not going to run out for a while. Yeah. And it's not hard to come up with new versions of a lot of the same things. There's I have a friend who's really let's see. There are, I think, 3 distinct eras of Conan stories. There's the thief, the pirate, and the king. So they all kind of fall
There's
into
a Dread Pirate Roberts section.
yeah. There's a pirate. They're the pirate years of Conan. Those are pretty good, actually. I've read some of those. So yeah, that would be the way to do it. And you'd want to do it on a streaming service, I guess. Mostly because movies. It's just kind of tough to. I think you have a lot more freedom and a lot less limitations if you're making a series now. It's what it seems like.
I think I think the pressure now would be too great on a movie series to make it into an overarching trilogy with like that whole Destiny, like chosen one, save the world vibe, like structure forced onto it.
That said, the tone is hard to translate to TV as well. Like, I don't know. I mean, would you consider something like Hercules and Xena, I guess, are kind of playing in a similar ball field? I guess those were successful,
They were. I think they're also from a
yeah.
different era where you can do, post Game of Thrones, you can do more serious fantasy stuff.
I suppose The Witcher is more or less a version of Conan,
There you go. Yes, it is.
That's kind of doing what we're talking about here. So yeah, I'd certainly watch it. Love to see someone give it a shot, actually. That would be the way.
Well, I'm going to hold out for the Rockstar game. I think that's the way to go.
That should happen too. Yeah. All right, Conan.
See you on the steps.
Yeah.